Hey everybody, welcome to Storm Talk. This is Wave 3 News meteorologist Brian Good as we head into this week after Derby. Very busy week around the area, it looks like weather-wise. This is the 500 millibar level of the GFS model. And the main reason I want to show you this is the overall jet pattern. Originating out in the Pacific, there is a dip that takes place across portions of the Rockies, another little bit of a dip here in the Northeast. But the main issue that you're going to see when I animate this is a strong low pressure. It's going to pretty much park itself over Canada. And what that is going to do, it's going to send several fronts and little impulses, little vortmax as we call them, wrapping around the southern edge of that low all the way through the week. And one or two of these, especially as we head into Friday, will dip far enough south that we get some cool air for the weekend. But even next week, I still feel that this low is going to be a factor in Canada, and it's going to keep sitting in several rounds of rain and thunderstorms. So wet pattern continues. The only relief we'll have will be when that dip, that low, drags just enough south out of Canada to push drier air into Kentucky for about a 48-hour period. And then when the low goes back into Canada again, we get back in that humid flow and those little impulses start to impact us. So let me show you the animation of that. You'll be able to see how that low is spinning in Canada and those little impulses riding around that. That is going to be, again, the main driver here in our weather pattern as we head into this week and beyond, really into the following week as well. All right, so let me talk about the setup here. First off, right now it is 71 degrees, lower 70s to the south, still the 50s in Seymour. Clouds and rain have been a little more prevalent in this area. You see even some blue shaded areas where temperatures in the 40s in some locations, way to our north, while it's really warm across Kentucky. Radar trends have kept most of the rain across southern Indiana. We've had a few showers in Louisville, very little, if anything, to the south. The main support is going to be across Indiana for the short term, but here's the change for later on tonight. Thunderstorms will get a better their act together really across the Ozarks later on tonight is the overnight period, and we will see that activity begin to approach I-65 just before sunrise. As far as severe potential for today, it's going to be limited to areas to our west in the Ozarks where the initiating storms will take place later on, and then tomorrow slight risk moves into Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee. Here in wave country, a good chunk of the area, including Louisville, in that slight risk marginal surrounding our area. So let me explain how this is going to unfold when it comes to the severe potential. Let me start with the RPM model, which I, at this point, am leaning more toward when it comes to timing of features. It is betting on the idea that later this afternoon we'll get enough thinning to take place to get us into the mid-70s. It's a big if. Still think that's possible, and the satellite trends, not overly supportive of that yet, but the radar trends are. So we'll keep an eye and see if we get some thinning to get us in the mid-70s. All right, but anyway, we'll see some passing showers move through. Now, here's that line of thunderstorms later tonight that will develop in the Ozarks and approach. Could be strong to severe, but what happens here is that it's 4 a.m., so obviously a lot of support ideas here come into play. Instability is lost, and it's out of the forcing zone as well. So there's not a lot of support to keep this going very far. But if it can move fast enough, it still could produce some slightly gusty winds, elevated winds. I'm saying maybe 30 miles per hour, maybe some lightning. But overall, the RPM fades it out completely by 6 a.m. near rush hour. But there's a possibility it may not fade out that rapidly and could still be on the radar trends at that point. So just keep that in mind for early tomorrow morning. That is important because if we have some shower and thunderstorm activity throughout the morning period, here's the question. How much do we destabilize then for the afternoon? Good south flow. We've got a warm front now that has passed through the area. We've got thunderstorms developing to our north. So as we heat things up, those thunderstorms become slightly more organized across Indiana and to western Kentucky, and then aim themselves to the southeast Tuesday night. Damaging winds and large hail will be a threat, especially if we get enough instability, we get really warm and overachieve on temperatures. The hail threat could be a little higher than indicated. And then we calm down after midnight. Now, the NAM model is a little different. The NAM 4K is later. This is around closer to midnight when it has thunderstorms developing to our north. So a lot later. It's betting on the idea that it takes a while for us to really get going and destabilize. It keeps us mainly stable throughout Tuesday afternoon and evening, and then overnight we become unstable enough for the thunderstorms to develop in Indiana, and they race through, say, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning Tuesday night. So a lot later of a scenario. Based on this, it looks a little odd to me to see that much robust activity that time of the night with the instability factor. So I'm not too keen on the NAM 4K right now. I'm being so aggressive with this. I think the RPM is a little more likely on the idea that we'll destabilize and get that activity in here. When you look at the soundings, by the way, from the NAM 4K, or first off, let me show you the winds from the NAM. It's showing, again, some wind shear. It's not off the chain. It's just right at the threshold when it comes to wind shear potential. And as far as capes go, or instability, here's a little area. This is the afternoon hours, and you see how the NAM is relatively low end during the afternoon, much more robust in western Kentucky. But here's the factor here. If we do gain the instability for Tuesday afternoon, I think the concern that the Storm Prediction Center has, and that's why we're listed in the slight risk, is mainly because the front being in the area, there's a better chance for some directional shear. So the helicity values are elevated over western Kentucky and portions of central Kentucky, and the EHI is also elevated over that same area of central Kentucky and even western Kentucky in some cases. This is pretty much where the slight risk has been drawn. And that tells us that there is, with a directional shear, you have potential for damaging winds, you got potential for obviously some large hail, but also some brief tornadoes are possible. And I don't want to scare you guys saying that, saying this is a tornado outbreak. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying the system is supportive of enough that we could get some rotating storms, and yes, we could have some tornado warnings and that kind of a factor. But you can't get that. You can have this, but if you don't have the energy to get into that level to have this become a reality, then you don't have the full deck of cards, basically. So there's a lot of ifs still on Tuesday how it's going to play out. But you can see that if we do gain the instability in the afternoon and evening, while there is a concern for some warnings to come out. All right, here is the sounding from the NAM. Again, a little aggressive here. It's showing a tornado potential. For that very reason, we got what we call looping hodograph there. So there's definitely some directional shear, south-southwest surface, and it increases to a west-northwest aloft, and quite a bit of wind involved in that scenario. Large hail is coming up. The capes are really outstanding on this for this late at night. This is like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning Tuesday night, and it's got capes at 2400. Seems a little odd to me. It shows no cap whatsoever, no SIN, which is again a little more likely because of nighttime, but still, it's I think the NAM 4K is just a little too aggressive on this for Tuesday night, late night, especially that late of timing. But I think it has the general idea of the potential, and the GFS is earlier in the evening, by the way. This is at 8 o'clock in the evening. I think this is a little more reality. It does give us a marginal tornado threat. It's not off the chain here. Our effective shear is about 42. Again, right at that threshold of 40 that I'll look at. Cape's about 1100, close to 1200 in fact. So again, a very marginal event, but I can't say there's not going to be a threat for isolated tornado. I do see that as a potential here for the directional shear. The damaging winds and large hail are also possible. So this is a scenario that's going to be a nowcasting event. I hate saying that because you guys hate hearing that, but that's pretty much how it's going to be. I got to see how much energy we're going to gain tomorrow at this time, and once I get to that point in the day, I'll be able to tell you guys a little better scenario of what is a little more likely of these two setups that we're looking at here, and the more common threat that we will likely face for Tuesday evening and overnight. So at this point, I'm betting on the faster solution with the RPM versus the slower NAM. I may change my mind toward news time, but that's the way I'm leaning toward at the moment there. By the way, the Schreff model, the ensembles here for the Schreff show the shear potential, again, right at that 40 threshold as we head into tomorrow. One thing I wanted to mention, though, is not really severe wind related or anything like that, is the dew point. Average dew point getting up there over 65, close to 70 as the week goes on. So very humid during the day and at night. That means the temperatures at night are going to have a struggle to even get out of the, I think we'll stay in 60s at night, certainly, with the humid air mass moving in. So very humid air, heavy downpours will be a concern. Flash flooding could be a concern as well, so heads up on that. And then we'll keep an eye on the severe threat for tomorrow to see if we can avoid that altogether, because that would be nice. I think we've had enough as of late. All right, guys, stay tuned. I'll have more coming up today at 5 o'clock. See you on TV.